right, we'll dive into it really quick, Paul. I'm sure you've been dealing with this for a very long time. Miss Danger wants to know about the fact that, like, anytime somebody comes up with a suggestion in terms of how to deal with the rapid changes on this planet, that there's always going to be co-option of your message for the purpose of trying to push sterilization and eugenics. What do you say in regards to people who think that your message is being used in the wrong way, for example?
Well, the message is often used in the wrong way. At Stanford, which I've been at for 65 roughly years, we had a Nobel laureate named Shockley, who said that people are color-coded for quality, and guess which ones were the most high quality. And then when that came out, and that was in, I guess, the 70s or 80s, everybody asked me whenever I gave a talk, isn't it true that we should stop those people who are not good from breeding? And I always used to say, yeah, and anybody who asks that question clearly is in the group that shouldn't breed. And Shirley Feldman and I wrote a book called The Race Bomb specifically to point out that all the racism has no biological basis in fact at all. That in fact, one could make an argument that people with darker skins are, because they're so treated so badly comparatively because of cultural things, that actually they're probably genetically smarter than people with lighter skins because they've had to make out in a tougher environment than those with light skins. But there is zero scientific support for the kind of racism that pollutes the United States and many other countries. Same thing for gender prejudice. It turns out that women, are as capable as men in doing virtually everything that doesn't require full strength, and in many cases they're even good there. But I mean, our evolution led to men being physically somewhat stronger, not necessarily able to live longer. But women around the world don't get a break. There isn't a single country in the world where women have the opportunities and the pay and so on that men get. And interestingly, one of the ways to deal with the population problem, that if we're going to do it humanely, we have to do, one of the first things you should do is give women full rights and opportunities, because it turns out when you do that, they tend to have lower fertility. They tend to choose to have fewer children. So the racism is something one has to deal with in everything in our society, the sexism as well. And if you're interested in seeing to it that we start the kind of slow shrinkage that we must have if the population is ever to be sustainable, one of the first things to work on is women's rights. So winner.
That's interesting. So that's a really interesting correlation. And yes, it's completely commonsensical when I think about it, because if women have equal opportunities, they're going to be pursuing a myriad of other things and not just staying home and breeding.
Right.
And so, right. I mean, that does make sense.
Come on. Who had a choice of having a child or a motorcycle would choose the child? I mean.
No, see, if you said dog or child, I would say, all right, you know.
That's a true Californian.
Okay,
right there.
yes.
And even to this day, Paul, I still have not seen Easy Rider, but it is a movie that I need to see. I am going to see it one of these days. But, you bring up a really great point about, women not necessarily, feeling the need to, just be homebodies and take care of children. I'm curious, because of the timing of your book, did what was presented on the Tonight Show have any impact when it came to Roe v. Wade? Was that even something that did more or less play some role in terms of that particular landmark legislation a few years later?
I don't think so. The most interesting thing out of Roe versus Wade was the great plunge in crime rates about 20 years after it was passed, because of course wanted children end up often being very much more responsible than unwanted children who are not treated properly. Roe versus Wade, as far as I'm concerned, is primarily an issue in two ways. One is, of course, just plain equity, women being able to make their own choices about how their bodies are operated. And two, anti-abortion laws, particularly in the earlier days, were simply laws that encouraged the murder of women, because as the statistics showed, abortion rates didn't change when you made anti-abortion laws, but women's death rates changed. Opposition, it's a good example. It's not a huge demographic issue. In other words, abortion has never been at a level where it made a significant dent in population statistics.
Right.
So you want to see significant dents, look at the population composition of France, say, from 1910 to 1930 or something like that. Then war can make dents in population growth, although not really significant ones unless we have a full-scale nuclear war, which is one of the existential threats tied to population quite tightly, which the people who understand what's going on in India and Pakistan realize could end our civilization tomorrow. Climate change will end our civilization if we don't do dramatic things about it in a few decades. But if India and Pakistan go at it with their now hundreds of nuclear weapons, as the most recent studies show, we're all screwed. So,
Vice did a great piece on that about 6-7 years ago. I remember that very well.
Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.